Thanks for tuning in today to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast, Seahawks edition. Today, we are talking about the Seahawks offseason. How did it go overall, grading each moves, and what does this mean for the future and the potential draft? As always, I'm with you, Sammy on Tap.
And me, George on Tap, the slingless man now. Done with the sling, so feels pretty good. Still, feel weird moving this arm, though.
For the podcast listeners, they might hear those words, but if you don't watch it on YouTube, you wouldn't know. George has been in a sling for the last 8-9 episodes, whatever it's been, but he is out of the sling now, and that's a good moment to say quickly, like and subscribe. If you are listening on YouTube, you can see the podcast link below, and if you are on podcast platforms and want to watch this or see our social media, all the links are below as well. And make sure, just take a second and review this if you're listening on podcast. That really helps. Give us a 5-star, leave a comment, and on YouTube, like and subscribe, and also leave a comment. So it's very helpful for us.
Absolutely. We appreciate it.
And let's get on to the show. You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
Tito, are you ready? Are you ready? You ready?
Seahawks offseason. We started off with a lot of releases. It started off with departures of Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson, Damian Lewis, Jordan Brooks, Drew Lock, DJ Dallas, and cutting Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs and Brian Monet and Nick Bellore. It was like a massacre of what the Seahawks once were, right, George? I mean, it began with an absolute revamp of what this roster is going to be and a lot of pieces that just aren't here anymore. I mean, yeah, a lot of the core pieces are there, but there was a lot of outside core pieces, I would say, or kind of borderline core pieces that were just completely washed away. And I think that's a good place to start with this offseason because I think it was clear from really early on that they're not running it back with the same team.
No, they're definitely not running back with the same team. But I think this is exactly, I forget the number, but I saw a while ago Pete Carroll's first season, like before the season started, how many transactions there were, and it was like an absurd number. They were kind of doing the same thing.
I saw that as well.
This year. I forget the exact number of transactions, but similar, right? I mean, you have a new head coach in there, like a new regime in a way, like Schneider's still there, but no Carroll. Like it is a little bit different. It's not a full regime change. It's like a half regime change, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you expect, and I'm happy about it because of one main thing in it. That's if you want the new head coach to be successful, you want to bring his guys in and give him a shot. You can't really force him to be working with things he doesn't want to work with. So I'm happy about it, plain and simple.
Yeah, and to bring up what you said is I'm reading a Field Goals article, and it is. They were talking about it was in what was the line here? It was a look back at the first calendar year under Pete Carroll and Josh Schneider with all the memorable transactions they made and a record number of transactions. So they pretty much were talking about how they took over one of the worst teams in the NFL, and their entire motto was out with the old, in with the new, and that was in full swing. And they did it. I don't know. Nobody knows the exact number, but you're right. It was supposedly a record-breaking amount of transaction in one offseason. And that quote is the reality, right? Out with the bad, in with the new, or out with the old, in with the new. But in the parentheses, it said bad and good. Now, that doesn't mean there's still guys out there like Quandre Diggs. That's a good football player, and he's going to land somewhere. And obviously, Will Dissly got a good contract and landed somewhere. And Jamal Adams, John Schneider was talking about that on the radio the other day, and he's like, he doesn't really love all the hate that transaction gets because at the time, there wasn't many people in the draft. They were like 20th in the draft. He's like, you're not going to get somebody like him at 20 in the draft. As good as he was, it was better than drafting somebody at 20. So he sent that first-round pick out, and he said, he had 9.5 sacks year one, and it was going to be, could have been something special. The injuries do suck. So when you look at all these players, these are guys that, with Diggs and Dissly and Jamal Adams, they're good football players, and they were invested, the Seahawks invested in a lot in them, but it just doesn't fit what's going on anymore. And it's a new coaching staff, and the money's not right anymore. And like you said, that it's a good thing. They are saying, you know what? Let's get out with whatever we had going on, and let's see how we can rebuild this organically, like in our new way, new coaching staff, no expectations from most guys, right? Like, you also don't want, I know a guy like Jamal Adams, he maybe was a Pete Carroll guy and stayed probably a little longer than he really would have if it was a different regime. And you saw that right away when the new coaching staff came in.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you said was like out with the bad, in with the old, whatever the
with the good
field goals.
Out with the bad, in with the good.
And this is a little bit of a different situation than we had when Pete Carroll was coming in, because he took over the Jim Mora Jr. team that
the worst team
was
in the
off.
NFL almost. Yeah, like one of the worst.
Yeah, one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they weren't very good. And there was literally, like, you had to like literally take a building and demolish it and rebuild a new building. Here is not quite that. You have the foundation, you got a nice house, it looks pretty good, but you got to remodel the kitchen a little bit. Like, this job that Mike McDonald is inheriting from Pete Carroll is definitely not the job that Pete Carroll was inheriting from Jim Mora. So
they weren't 9-8 teams like with decent talent all over the place. It's a very different team.
Absolutely, and I think that's great because I feel like all the moves are tweaks, right? We haven't really come in and made a move where like, oh my God, the whole entire situation of a team is changing. And usually in football, you don't say that unless the quarterback is gone. But like the offense pretty much is the same offense. Sure, you're losing Bobby Wagner, but he's towards the end of his career. You're losing Jordan Brooks, but you're kind of replacing him with a guy about similar with him in Baker, Jerome Baker. And I feel like you kind of kept the young core. You kept Witherspoon, obviously. You keep Tariq Woolen. Like, I feel like it's there's small tweaks, and there hasn't had to be that like total teardown, which should give Seahawks fans optimism heading into next season, at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, unless it was a trade, we were going to keep Woolen and Witherspoon and all those guys. I mean, they were not free agents, right? And they're young on young contracts. But I get the essential point is the young core that we've been building is obviously still intact, right? Like the draft picks, the Boye Mafes, the Uchenna Nwasus, the Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoons, the Jackson Smith and Jigbas, the DK Metcalfs, Kenneth Walker, all the guys, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, like all these guys from the last 3 or 4 drafts are here. They're not like breaking down any of the progress. They were kind of stripping out some of the older stuff, right? Like, okay, Jordan Brooks is on like 5 years here. Like, maybe it's not the price anymore. And Will Dissly's been around for a while. And Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs are not really in that young core anymore, right? They're not in those like 24, 25-year-old range. So they're kind of just like stripping out some of the older pieces outside of quarterback pretty much and Tyler Lockett and letting everything else kind of be fill-ins. Now, what's interesting when you mention like, and I think this is the biggest part of what we're talking about when we talk about this offseason and grading it, right, is one of the most interesting parts is, and fans don't like to hear this. I said this on Twitter, George, and everyone's like, oh, fucking stupid analysts try to say that this team's not trying to win a Super Bowl this year. And I was like, calm down, people. Like, I was saying,
well, first of all, you're not an analyst.
Correct. I know. But it was like, I got so many like angry people. What the fuck's the point if they're not trying to win a Super Bowl? And I was like, calm down. Like, realistically, the Seahawks know that they might not be better this year than a few teams to win a Super Bowl. And that's okay in football. I think fans get this weird perspective that, yes, the goal always is to win a Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean every team thinks this is the year, do or die, right? And the Seahawks obviously don't believe that.
I think most organizations go into it with the thought that we're trying to win a Super Bowl during this regime. Like, I don't think anyone's like, all right, this is the year we're going to win the Super Bowl, do or die. They're obviously the Seahawks, John Schneider, Mike McDonald, the organization is trying to win a Super Bowl. But to your point, Sammy, they're probably not. They're not. Their goal is not.
It's not a failure if they don't this year.
Don't win the Super Bowl this year. I was going to say it's not their goal to win the Super Bowl this year. No, it is their goal. Like, but it's not a failure. Like it's not their ultimate, like, okay, I think their goal this year is to make the playoffs and build off last season.
I had a whole point of that Twitter rant thing because I was trying to say on Twitter's, look at the contracts, okay? This team is not committing outside of the guys they know, right? Mm-hmm. They lost Jordan Brooks, but they brought Jerome Baker on a 1-year, $7 million contract. They brought Tyrell Dotson on a 1-year, $4.2 million contract. Exactly. George Fant on a 2-year contract. Darrell Taylor's back on a 1-year contract. Nick Harris, 1-year contract. Pharaoh Brown, 1-year contract. Rashawn Jenkins got a 2-year contract, so he got a little extra year. But Noah Fant, 2 years.
Long-term commitment.
The longest contract we signed this offseason was Leonard Williams, 3 years. And that's our biggest signing and our most surefire, he's really good.
And we also gave up some trading for him last year. So, of course you're going to commit to him, right?
Yeah. You can't trade for a midseason and then sign him to a 1 year. It's not even worth it, right? For what you did.
He would probably say no.
Yeah, and that's another thing. A lot of these guys, and this is actually the essence of where it gets to, is the guys that they know and that have already proved it got their 2 or 3 years, right? The rest of the fill-ins that they did this year, instead of paying Jordan Brooks $10 million a year, they're giving Jerome Baker a 1-year, $7 million prove-it contract. And they're giving Tyrell Dotson a 1-year, $4 million prove-it contract. And I think this is where things get interesting in this offseason. They're not building just for the future, and they're not just building for now. They're doing a little bit of both. They're getting some of the guys stuck on long-term deals that they want. But then inside it, they're saying, okay, hey, we didn't want to overpay maybe for Jordan Brooks or Patrick Queen or whoever it may be. So let's find these 1-year deals on Prove It guys, maybe 2 years for Jenkins, let's say, at the safety position, but 1 or 2 year deals. Let's see where that leads to. And then maybe next year or the year after, we're at that exact point where we're starting to make big moves to lead to a Super Bowl, right? And that's what happened with the Seahawks when Pete Carroll came in. They shook all those things up. They moved things around. Then a year or two later, they made the right moves, got the right draft picks, made a couple splash moves, Percy Harvin and bringing in Michael Bennett. All those things were splash moves, right? And then, bam, here comes the Super Bowl. So I think you probably find it interesting too, right, that the fact that most of these signings that filling in spots that we needed are on 1-year contracts. That means exactly that they're trying to see what people can prove this year.
Yeah, and I'll have a YouTube video but by the time that this podcast is out, the YouTube video will also be out, so you can go on this channel right here and check out the last tap on George's tap, and it's about the linebackers we just signed. And honestly, not only is it like you said, signing 1-year guys on Prove It guys, but I think the guys we signed are good players. We're happy with them, but I don't think they were our top choices going into free agency. I think.
It's not Patrick Queen.
Right. I think the team might have miscalculated a little bit, which happens. They might have thought that
John Schneider said it, quote unquote.
Yeah. So he went, quote unquote, said it. So they miscalculated and they brought these guys. So, okay, I miscalculated. So instead of going and splurging and buying, let's say you were about to buy a house, right? I'm going to give an analogy here. And all of a sudden you miscalculated and you didn't get the house you want. All right, I'm just going to sign a lease at my apartment for another year. I'm not going to overpay for a house I don't want. And I think that's kind of and that's what the Seahawks did. They're just buying some time at their apartment, and they'll go back and look for a house next year on the market.
And let's not forget Mike McDonald. Patrick Queen was essentially labeled as a bust before Mike McDonald came in, okay? All of a sudden he became an all-pro and got a giant contract with the Steelers. Now, Mike McDonald, either one of two things, knows that probably was a little too much for Patrick Queen, or two, these other guys that are very good right now or decent right now, bring him in on 1-year contracts. Let me see what I can do with them. And then all of a sudden, if Jerome Baker becomes better than I think he might be better than Jordan Brooks already, but let's say he becomes good enough to be the guy, then we'll sign him. Let me just test it out for a year and see what happens.
Yeah, and I saw I was kind of looking up all the stuff about Baker, and he is Jordan Brooks.
Yeah,
he
there's some pros and cons on each side that one might be better at, but they're the same shit.
So Jordan Brooks, from what I was reading about him, Jordan Brooks is a little bit better in coverage. I don't know if you lost me there. My screen went black.
No.
All right. Jordan Brooks is a little bit better in coverage. Baker's a little bit better through the blitz and run. Like they ran about the same exact 40 speed, and they're about the same exact size. And in a weird way, it's like you almost called the Dolphins and just swapped them for each other and ended up just kind of moving teams. It's almost like the Dolphins and the Seahawks traded Jerome Baker for Jordan Brooks. I know that's not what happened, but in a weird way, it's kind of like
in different deals, I guess, technically. Or like 1 year 7 versus 3 years 30.
Yeah.
You know. Well, what's interesting, I wanted to go through some PFF stats too, and this is what, grain of salt. I always say that PFF stats, just like analytics, is a metric, right? It's not a end all be all. But for example, like Tyrell Dotson was the number 1 rated linebacker defensively at a 90.2 on PFF in the entire NFL, ahead of Fred Warner, ahead of Blake Martinez, ahead of Bobby Wagner, and ahead of everyone. But then you get to, obviously, rush defense, he was good at 11th, but then he was also, I think, not very good. He was not good in coverage or pass rush, one of the two. But then, like pass rush, Jordan Brooks was actually fourth in pass rush last year. Mm-hmm. And then, are you sure that they're saying? I think Brooks was bad in coverage last year.
But I heard that Baker's worse in coverage.
No, Jerome Baker was 27th in coverage last year.
All right, I don't know. From what I read online, that he was not
it's not physically possible because I remember Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner were both at 60 and 59.9 grades at like in the low hundreds. Like there were two of the worst coverage. Remember how bad our coverage linebackers were? They were the worst coverage linebacking core in all of football potentially. I'm like 100% sure.
From what I'm reading here, coverage ability. Dotson was taken off for passing downs last year. This is Dotson. At an 82.9 completion allowed year is pretty bad. Baker was worse at 84.8%.
You're talking about Dotson. You're not talking about Jordan Brooks.
No. Dotson was...
Dotson,
yes, I'm saying
not Brooks.
No. I know. I'm saying Baker was worse in pass coverage.
I know. This whole time you're saying Jordan Brooks was better than Baker in pass coverage. Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner were the two worst pass coverage duo in all of football. Not pass coverage. There were two worst coverage duos.
From what I'm reading here, it says coverage-wise, I wouldn't say Jerome Baker is a massive upgrade on Brooks. So they're probably about the same.
What wouldn't say is a massive upgrade. He's definitely an upgrade.
Okay, he's an upgrade, yeah.
No, Jordan Brooks. This is like our biggest problem last year. Was Bobby and
I'm totally agreeing with you. I'm not saying I must have misread that, but I'm saying Brooksville is, from what they're saying, is better in the run game than Jordan Brooks was, and so I guess like if he's not a massive upgrade on the passing, at least you're getting someone who's better at blitz and at the pass, at the run, and a little better at the pass.
Just in general, I'm just saying Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner are the worst pass coverage linebacker duo in all football. So regardless, it's going to be an upgrade somehow, some way, and probably coaching staff wise, that's probably going to be like one of the biggest important pieces this year. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the whole point is that this linebacker core is going to be better probably than it was last year, despite if you like Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner, despite Bobby Wagner potentially, I thought it was probably worth bringing him back on that 1 year deal for the price he got, because he's overall, Bobby Wagner we know is a great linebacker in general. But there was just so many flaws in our defense last year that upgrading or getting these linebackers on 1 year prove it deals regardless gives us one or two options. Is they're either going to be great and we bring them back and all of a sudden our defense is good with some decent linebackers who are young and getting a chance, or if it doesn't work out, we had them on 1 year deals, and then you can test the free agency market, test the trade market, and see what you want to do there. I think at the end of the day, as we mentioned, it's clear that the Seahawks are figuring out, let's not go all in, like you say, let's not buy the house this year. Let's rent for 1 year and see who's going to be part of our long-term plan? Who's moving in next year, right? And who's getting kicked out of the house? Like,
Right.
That's what the entire offseason was about, and I think that is the right way to do it because we have our core pieces in certain spots, and then on other spots it's a toss-up, and you have to kind of see what you have. And I think they're kind of doing the same thing, and I think this is a big part of before we really give our full grade on what the offseason was, is the quarterback position was another interesting one because what does that mean for the draft now, right? Or does that mean they're drafting quarterback? Does that mean they want to try out Sam Howell for a year and see what he can be? Does that mean, they're already just working maybe on the next after Geno plan because they're not trying to re-sign Geno next year? This is where another part of it gets interesting. Like, the quarterback situation was something a lot of people were talking about. Who are we going to draft? Who are we going to draft? And then you go get Sam Howell, and it's kind of made that situation confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how confusing, but it's kind of, I was surprised about with the whole Sam Howell trade is I feel like we should have, I don't know, I might be crazy, but Justin Fields went for less than Sam Howell. I kind of rather had went for Justin Fields than Sam Howell.
Clearly, whoever these scouts are in the NFL and whoever these coaches are think that's inaccurate, right? They think he's just obviously people think Justin Fields is not good. Like,
well, what I heard on Colin Cowherd's show today is the Steelers had multiple offers from multiple teams. I'm sorry, the Bears had multiple offers from multiple teams, and they ended up asking Justin Fields where he wanted to go, and he said he wanted to go to Pittsburgh out of all those offers. So whether the Seahawks made an offer or not, maybe a similar one that they made to Howell or not, I have no idea. But it sounds like Justin Fields, the Bears were doing Justin Fields a favor and sending him where he wanted to go.
Yeah, that was what his agent said, and as if you watch if you watch the rest of the clip on the Colin Cowherd show, Jason McIntyre asked him, "Do you believe that?" And Colin Cowherd goes, "No." Obviously not, because every GM we've talked to anonymously said nobody wants Justin Fields. So I don't think they were fielded multiple offers, because if they were fielded multiple offers, it wouldn't be a freaking 6th round and a conditional 4th if he plays. Like, that is literally what you get for like a backup corner in this league.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So I mean, it's pretty crazy to me that if there was actually multiple offers, that's what you got. You got a 6th round pick and a 4th if he plays, which is pretty much a toss-up. Because if Russell Wilson's healthy and plays decent, Fields is not playing, right? Like, it's a toss-up. Exactly. So I don't know. I do think that's interesting because I know that a lot of people have that opinion as well. And from a fan perspective, somebody that's, just watched Justin Fields, you would think, like, I would also think Justin Fields might be a better option than Sam Howell, right? Like, the versatility. He's young. He's, he can run, and he was in such a bad organization. Right. Yeah. But I think one big thing here is Howell has next year for $1 million as well. Justin Fields has a huge, 5th-year player option for $26 million next year.
Yeah, and that plays a big role for sure. For sure.
Especially for a team like the Seahawks, who know they're most likely going to roll Geno this year, unless there's some other big thing. Like, you were going to bring Field in for 1 year, and if you don't like him, he's gone, or you have to pay him $26 million. It's a big price to pay. So I don't know. I do agree that could that might have been a better option, but I think I believe the Seahawks are just set on Geno this year, that it wasn't worth having a backup that they would have to pay next year $26 million if they want to keep. And then maybe, I think we talked about this on our last podcast, George, is like you said, maybe they're still just planning on drafting a quarterback, and Sam Howell is just an additional throw in backup somewhere,
Possibly. I don't know. I feel like my comments on Sam Howell were not taken very well, and I'm an idiot that I don't think that he's the next coming of Drew Brees.
No, because you were extremely unrealistic about him, saying that he's not good. And I mean, like, he's better than Justin Fields passing wise. It's clear by every statistic and metric, but you were saying like he sucks. He's going to be a 3rd string quarterback. No,
I'm not saying he's being a 3rd string quarterback. I said he could possibly, if we go draft a quarterback early in the draft, end up being the 3rd string quarterback on the team. I guess to clarify my thoughts here, you said he's getting paid $1 million next year. I think we're taking a swing on him. If it works out, great. If not, he could be a 3rd string quarterback. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, see, but I feel like if he doesn't, the hard part for that for me is he won't be on the team if he's going to be a third string quarterback. I think he's either going to be the second string, first string, or like if we do draft. This is why I don't feel like we're drafting a quarterback anymore, because there's no reason to trade for Sam Howell to be the third string if you're planning on taking a quarterback. Like there's literal no purpose, right? Like that'd be like
no
the Steelers
purpose to sign Matt Flynn to a huge contract and go draft a quarterback and then have an open competition where Russell Wilson becomes a starting quarterback. I mean, I think this organization has shown that we are willing to take swings, and if someone wins the job, we're willing to walk off of something that we believed in.
Okay, once again, completely off topic. That's not even relevant to this topic because
It's very
Matt
relevant.
Flynn, no, we didn't have a quarterback. We drafted one. That'd be like Geno Smith and a rookie this year competing. Totally understandable. There's once again, what would be the purpose if they signed Matt Flynn and then they traded for a backup quarterback and then drafted Russell Wilson?
Because
Like-
you don't, because you would. Let's just say I'm just going to throw a hypothetical theory out here for you. Okay, let's say then we got Matt Flynn and then we traded for a backup quarterback, and you're in love with Russell Wilson in the draft and he fell in your lap. Are you going to be like, man, I got to already trade for a backup, can't take another quarterback, or do you just take a swing at a quarterback in the most important position? I'm not saying they're going to, by the way. They might not get the quarterback that they want.
You just said a hypothetical that didn't happen, because if you're planning on looking at a quarterback, there's usually not that much of a purpose of going and trading for someone like Sam Howell, who in your scenario, I'm saying your scenario, you don't think he's a competitor to be a starter. So why would you trade for him now? If you don't think somebody's competing for a starting job, you can wait till after the draft and go get any backup in the NFL. You can go sign the Tyrod Taylors of the world. You can go sign a Joe Flacco as your backup.
Don't you need a backup quarterback? Like right now, like I'm just saying, they had Geno Smith.
You
Don't
need
they
a backup quarterback in April when the draft's in 3 weeks.
Yes, because you don't know if anyone's going to fall to you in the draft.
I understand.
You have no
but
idea.
After the draft, you can still go find a backup quarterback. You can still
Sure,
trade.
but then you're going to be looking at some really bad backup quarterbacks, and we've seen it in the NFL. I think now the backup quarterback's such an important position that you need to go get a good backup quarterback no matter what, and that's what I think it is. I could be totally wrong. I'm totally wrong about this whole entire thing, but that's just my opinion, and I believe my opinion, and I could be wrong about my opinion. But my opinion is Sam Howell was brought in to be the backup, but if a quarterback falls to the Seahawks at the right situation, they would be willing to go draft a quarterback. And if they don't draft a quarterback, I'll end up looking wrong. But I really believe if they get the quarterback they want at some point in the draft, they might take one.
I mean, yeah, that's an obvious answer, but I think that's completely. You were talking about the comments not liking your Sam Howell take. That had nothing to do with what you said last podcast. You said he's more likely to be out of the team than be like a starter, and you were talking about how bad he is.
I don't think. I just don't. I think he was
were,
brought in to be
you
the
were
backup
over
quarterback.
exaggeratedly talking about how bad he is when he was a starting quarterback last year in the NFL. Like Justin Fields had way worse statistics than him. He's a way worse passer than him, and you were just talking about it if he was like you were talking about it as if he was like the worst quarterback like ever known to man.
He's what was one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL last year, and I don't think he would be a starter.
What does that have to do with what you said?
Because it's exactly what I said. I said he was brought in to be the backup quarterback, and if we find a quarterback in the draft, he could end up being the third
that's not why the
quarterback.
comments said that. The comments didn't like you talking about him being like the worst quarterback in the history of football is how you came across, but that's fair. It's okay. I mean, obviously everybody took it the same way I took it too. So, I mean, he's not that bad. I mean, he was a starter last year in the NFL and had better stats than like Josh Allen did his rookie year and Peyton Manning and all these other people, because sometimes in the NFL you throw a shit ton of picks in your rookie year.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's not awful. Like, I mean, he was better than Zach Wilson.
Okay, he's Zach Wilson.
I mean, he's a little better than Zach Wilson, but yeah, they're both not great. They're both not.
Yeah,
they're not.
that's
They're
my
both
point.
not Tom Brady. Well, George obviously doesn't like when the comments disagree with him, but
No, I
life.
just don't like. No, because I think people take things way too literally. When I say he could be a third string quarterback, all I'm saying is he could end up being the third string quarterback. I wouldn't be shocked. But he could also end up being the backup quarterback. And I will be surprised if he's the starting quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, barring injury next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a higher bet to say he's not the starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, most likely, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, anywho, overall, I would say as of right now, in a good way, there's two ways to look at it, right? Like, are you grading them on like how well are they competing for a Super Bowl? No, we're grading them on like what did we do by what we were available to do, I guess, this offseason, or what our future plans are. I would definitely give them like in the B+ range of like patchwork, like
B+?
Yeah.
Wow, that's way higher than I would think. That's like really good.
What do you think? They fucking shat the offseason?
No, but they said they mismanaged the linebacker position. They don't have any linebackers. They still don't have really like an elite safety position. I'm giving them a C. It was an average offseason personnel. Why? Because they're patching it up. It's patchwork. I give them a C. Maybe they hit a home run in the draft and it can become a B or A, which I actually believe they will do. But I would give them a C on this offseason. They haven't got they had holes.
I don't think
fill.
I don't think you've read through the like free agency list and like exactly what the team did. If you think it's a pure C,
it's a C.
Okay.
The whole offseason, everything.
I didn't know you have harder grades than CBS Sports, Sports Illustrated, PFF. You have worse grades than all of them, all of their analysis. You have a worse grade than what they graded the Seahawks.
So you're telling me you said,
no, I'm just telling you. I'm not arguing it. I'm just telling you have a worse grade for the Seahawks than every like major media.
How about
outlet.
I have an idea. Like, how about when I give my grade, you ask me why, and then I'll tell you why. Then you can we can go back and forth, and you can talk about why I'm giving him a C instead of just telling me you're wrong.
I didn't say you're wrong. I said you have a worse grade than every major media.
So no, just do you want to ask me why?
I did ask you why.
Okay, so at the end of the day, you said it yourself. This team is not trying to win a Super Bowl this year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I didn't say they're not trying
also
to. I said that not every move is made for winning a Super Bowl this year.
Okay. So, and you also told me that they're now renting a house instead of buying a house, but they're in the buyer market with the linebacker position. But the general manager of a team came out and said, I mismanaged that position, correct?
He didn't say mismanaged the position. He said that they mistimed how the market was going to move so fast.
Okay, so they mistimed something as a general manager. I'm not saying the offseason's not over yet, by the way. There's still the draft. There's still a lot to do. But they lost. Would you tell me they've gotten better or about the same in the linebacker position from last year? Between losing Brooks and Wagner and bringing in Dotson and Baker. About the same, correct?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. The safety position still doesn't really have an answer. Has it gotten better or worse?
The safety position? It's probably the same as last year, maybe a little bit better. I mean, if Jenkins is probably Jamal Adams doesn't play, so are we considering that?
I mean, we're considering the safety position as a total. Like, have we figured out the safety position yet? Like, do we know what?
I mean, yeah, Jenkins is probably the safety for the next 2 years, and Julian Love's the safety this year. So
okay,
I'd say
so
it's
about
pretty
the
much
same.
figured out.
He's about the same, like Quandre Diggs, like about the same, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a C. It's been average. Like I'm not like a B means like you are exceptional, and A means you're amazing. A C means you did okay. Like you had a good off season, but you didn't fail the off season. I'm not saying they failed the off season. I'm just saying they didn't. Like a B plus means they almost hit an A on the off season, which is an outstanding off season. Now we're going to talk about the coach. I think that's an A. I'm just talking about the personnel on the field. It's about a C. It's an average off season so far. That's how I look at it. Yeah, that's all. I'm just saying that's how I see it.
No, I'm not even gonna give you a different perspective because it obviously doesn't go well.
No. But I just don't like when I try to give my perspective and just shot down before hearing me out.
They didn't say that. I
tell
said
me
I'm
why
shocked.
you think it's a B plus.
I already did. I don't even want to give you a perspective.
No, tell me. No, tell me.
All I said is that you have a harsher grade than every major media outlet in America, because I just think it is wild to believe a C is like you barely passed. A C in like school, right?
It's
if you
a
have anything
passing
below a
grade.
C, you fail, right? D and F, you actually fail. Like below 2.0 in school, you fail. Like,
I don't think they
I
failed
just
the
find it
offseason.
crazy to believe that this team is barely past the offseason.
I didn't say barely pass. C minus.
said
would be
C.
Barely. A C. It's an average offseason. But I would like to know why you think it's a B plus. I'd like to know. Like now that I told you why I think it's a C, like I would like to know why you think it's a B plus.
Well, I think the coaching staff was brought in the right way. They re-signed Noah Fant, which was great. They re-signed Leonard Williams, which was great. They brought in 2 offensive linemen, and George Fant and Nick Harris, to be able to have some insurance for Abraham Lucas, to have some competition at the center position. They brought back Artie Burns for cornerback depth. Darrell Taylor's coming back for some edge depth. Uchenna Nwasu's going to be back. So I think the whole core now with Terrell Dotson and with Jerome Baker is actually pretty set. I think with Rashawn Jenkins, the safety position is back up to a decent standard without maybe the injury concern of a Jamal Adams. I think we have a legitimate backup quarterback who potentially could, if there was a reason to have to start this year, he'd actually be compatible, which we had last year too with Drew Lock, which I think is a
that's true.
really important
Very
thing.
important
Losing
position.
Drew Lock, bringing back a quarterback who's competent to potentially play if necessary or if chosen by the staff, is a very important thing. I just think that most holes every hole that we had, we ended up finding a way to fill it. Now, I didn't say it's an A plus, because A plus would mean we got Patrick Queen and we got the best offensive lineman on the market and the best this on the market.
Yeah.
But we pretty much got back to the standard that we needed to last year while adding some depth on the offensive line, which is really important, while also getting rid of some of the pieces that needed to be gotten rid of, with Brian Monet and Jamal Adams and Will Disley and Quandre Diggs and all that money that we saved. We wouldn't even have been able to re-sign Leonard Williams or bring in Rashawn Jenkins or Tyrell Dotson or anybody of that sort. So I think every move as a whole puts them somewhere in that B to B plus range, because we went from a situation that after when that free agency market started and we kind of were like stuck waiting, it looked like we were not going to be that competent in this free agency. And then we brought back to a team that probably should win 9 or 10 games if they play well.
Do you think we're better as a roster than last year? Just a real serious question.
Yeah. How would we not be? Like, where would we be missing that we aren't better than last year?
I feel like we're about the same as last year. I mean, we had, I guess Bobby Wagner led the NFL in tackles. We lose him. I know, we have his replacement. I don't think he's as good as Bobby Wagner, but I think we're about the same as last year, roster-wise. I don't think we've gotten I wouldn't say, like, looking at this roster, wow, the Seahawks gotten better than they were last year. I think there's a chance after the draft to get better than last year, but I wouldn't necessarily. And going into last year, I think we were top 11, 12 in odds to win the Super Bowl. Right now, we're 22nd in odds to win the Super Bowl, and I think that's because of the personnel more than the coach. I think everyone in football loves this head coach. I think I could be totally wrong, but I think there's a reason why we have lower odds to win the Super Bowl. I just don't think this roster is as good. I think we're not trying to win the Super Bowl this year, and that's why I gave it a C. And I just feel like, giving it higher than a C is saying we hit a. I mean, if this was a baseball analogy, we hit a couple singles. I don't think we hit any doubles or home runs this offseason.
Yeah, I think bringing back Leonard Williams was at that price was actually somewhat of a home run when you see guys like Chris Jones get 5 years, $100 million.
Yeah, see, that's fair. I also kind of looked at Leonard Williams as I was more thinking about the additions to the team rather than the re-signing.
He's a free agent. I mean, like if he'd left, he
yeah,
could have been
but-
Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. and not been here
Right.
anymore.
No, totally.
It would
But
be
he wasn't
worse.
an addition. I wouldn't say like I was looking at the additions to the team, right? Like what did we do addition wise? I wouldn't consider Leonard Williams an addition personally, but glad we have him. But yeah, that's what I meant.
I don't know. You can't look at an offseason of just additions because then some teams would just get Fs if they don't make any moves. Like that's not fair.
Yeah,
either.
no, that's fair. That's fair. Like no, I know. I'm saying the Leonard Williams signing was great. Yeah, no, I totally get that. But that's just kind of how I look at things, and I could be totally wrong again. And like I don't know. I'm not like saying I'm not trying to like stir the pot too much here, but like I'm on the web sportingnews.com right now, and they gave him a C. Like I'm not like crazy to give him a C. I'm just not crazy.
I'm not even gonna read. I'm not as anybody will notice now. Moving forward on the podcast, I will not give any reactions. I won't react to anything you say, so we can keep it.
I'm not
you
asking
speak.
you not
I
to-
speak on a podcast. Because obviously, me reacting, saying, "Oh my God, a C," just opened a can of worms. Like, dude, I just thought it wasn't a good grade. Move off
that's
of
fair.
it. Like, dude,
I just,
like goodness gracious. It was just an opinion. It's supposed to be some discourse on a podcast. It'd be pretty boring if everything you said I
course.
gave a thumbs up.
No, but yeah, I know. I just wanted to give my reasoning why, and it was like before I give you a reason why. Oh, you're telling me this. I'm like, whoa, let me tell you.
That's
why.
not what happened. It's okay. But I just said, wow, that's crazy. I didn't know it'd be a C. I mean, it's okay. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I'll make sure I list everything here too. We got CBS with a B+. We got Sports Illustrated with a B+. We got PFF with a B-. We got ESPN with the B+. Do you want me to keep listing them or no?
Like, okay, yeah, like
Yeah, see, I'm just saying, like, it doesn't matter,
No,
dude.
no,
Like, I
I'm
was
just
just
saying,
saying, my reaction was just, I think it's interesting that I would consider a C. Like, if I come home with C's from school, family's not happy, right? You
All
are
right, fair,
below,
yeah.
you are average or close to, you're like closer to failing than you are to A+. So, like, I just don't think it was that close to a fail.
Yeah.
Or a bad off. I guess a bad off season, right?
It wasn't bad.
I'm just saying when you have a C,
Yeah.
usually that's like it feels closer to an F or a D than it does an A, right? Like if somebody's a C student, you feel like they're maybe borderline more like on that side, right, than on the A side.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
I'm just
I
saying,
guess.
like it feels like a collapse, or it feels like a C would feel like a. Like if I told you every year your team does a C in the off season, it would feel like a C means like it was like we are. I don't know. Do you consider C average? Because like I feel like that's also. I feel like that's also. Like I still like don't consider me personally like C as an average because like if you think
That's
about it,
what
that's
I
like saying
consider it, yeah.
5 out of 10 is not average. It feels
5
like
out of 10 is an F.
and
That's
I know it's in the
50%.
middle, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's okay. Let's have a conversation, George.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like,
I know.
5 out of 10 in life, like, if somebody's 5 out of 10 in looks, you're leaning more on the, like, that person's really ugly than their good looking side, right? If you're a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, if you're a 5 out of
So-
10, if you're a 7 out of 10, that's a C. Yeah, you're pretty good.
7 out of 10 is C? Because
Yeah,
that's
that's
above
7%.
average.
Yeah, average and C is way different.
Is it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
an
See, for me,
average-
I see C as, like, you're really close to a D, which is, you're close to failing.
like
I don't
a
know.
C
C
is
is
like
bad.
76%. If someone in life is a 7.6 out of 10, they're a decent. It's a pretty.
You're talking
to
about
C.
it's right next to the C+, which is, like, you're getting closer to above average.
Yeah, the C plus I think 78%. Yeah, like 76%.
So it's been a
Like,
while since I've been in school.
Yeah, C is anywhere between 72 and 78 is a C out of 100.
I don't know. I just think the offseason was all right. I think at the end of the day,
Yeah,
they're going to
exactly.
– it's also going to depend on the coaching staff here. Like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of – like Geno Smith, right? If he plays like 2022 Geno Smith, this team's going to have a better record. If he regresses he regressed a little bit last year, right? If he regresses again, all of a sudden we're looking at maybe, it can make the whole offseason look worse if the team's worse, right? But if all of a sudden Geno Smith's playing well, this team wins 10 games, they win more games than last year, we're going to say, oh, what a good offseason. But it's probably, and I feel like every NFL team's like this, like look at the Chiefs, right? If Patrick Mahomes is playing, oh, great offseason. They've done great, right? Like,
yeah, they also have the draft still. So, like, we could literally end up with, like, according to my grades, like a B minus B even, which is a really good. That's like a 8.5 out of 10 on the offseason, which is a really good number. But according to like everyone else, it would be like a 9.8 out of 10 because they're already at an 8.8. Like, I just think it's not done yet. You know, we have a first round draft pick. It's going to be probably a really valuable player.
When people are talking about free agency off-season grades right now, like, I think it's very clear and obvious that does not include draft yet. So it's like you're not gonna give, if somebody had the best free agency ever, you're not gonna be like, I can't give them an A because they still have the draft to fuck up.
No,
like,
totally.
It's still an A, you know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you can assess things before the next things happen. Like I'm not gonna grade.
Right.
You know, I'm not grading this offseason as a what is the Seahawks grade for the next 3 years. Like, no, this is just right now and exactly what's happened at this moment more than is like
totally
what's to come. I think at the end of the day, we're gonna find out. The only way to find out, I guess, is let's see what they end up doing on the field this year, because as sports talk opinion goes, nothing's ever really set in stone until they step on the court or the field and actually do it, and then everyone knows what's actually happening.
That is very, very true, actually.
Unfortunately, there's no way to find out. It's always like those debates, like what if this team did this, or what if we ended up signing that guy? Like, well, we will never know actually if
that part could not be more true.
But that's why sports is the greatest show on earth, because it's the only show we actually don't know what the answer's coming. Like,
that's so fair. That's a cool thing. It really is a cool thing about sports.
We'll be back on this is gonna be released Tuesday, and then Friday there'll be another Seahawks podcast, and then make sure you guys check out the podcast feed. We'll always say Mariners or Seahawks or any other topic that we're doing, and then check out the links in the descriptions for each specific YouTube page or social media. There's Mariners pages, there's Seahawks pages, and there's a Huskies YouTube page, Husky specific. So you got to check all those out. If you're listening on the pod, links in the description. If you're listening on YouTube, also links in the description. So make sure you check them all out, and we'll be back in a few days. Go Hawks. And George, is that everything? You got anything else?
No, that's it, man.
We'll be back next time, and please, George, tell the people what we like to say.
Thank you for stopping by.
We'll see you next time. Peace.